So recently Ninja did a little tweet that's been pretty controversial. It trended hard. And do you want to read it? What was it?
I have it prepared. Ninja tweeted, "The phrase, 'it's just a game,' is such a weak mindset. You are okay with what happened. Losing, imperfection of a craft. When you stop getting angry after losing, you've lost twice. There's always something to learn and always room for improvement. Never settle." And
this went crazy viral.
I feel like I didn't read into it as much, or I didn't think it was that deep compared to what everyone else did. Number one, people love getting angry at, people love getting angry at people, but people especially love getting angry at people with followers, and they especially love getting angry at Ninja.
Yeah.
I feel like, man, like I'd be so scared if I was him. Every time I'd tweet something, I'd like show it to like 6 different people, be like, "Yo, are we good? Is this okay?"
Yeah, it actually like went pretty crazy viral. And I agree. I feel like I read it and I was like, oh yeah, all right. But people felt strongly about this one. I feel like people either 100% agreed or massively were like, this is such a toxic mentality you're promoting to a young audience.
Yeah.
And I actually, like, one of our friends, Maddie, right?
Yeah.
She responded to the tweet and Ninja went back to her. She was definitely on the side of like, this is such a toxic mentality. You shouldn't do it. Like, that's a really destructive thing to say, basically.
Yeah.
And I definitely take her point, but I don't know. It was kind of an interesting one. I feel like his choice in words wasn't the best, but the actual sentiment behind it, I kind of understand. I think the thing that people took issue with was the sentence that when you stop getting angry after losing, you've lost twice.
Yeah, I think it's just a pretty classic example of, where you have a thought and you bang it out and you don't, number one, you're limited on characters on Twitter, so you can't necessarily be like, when you stop getting angry, except obviously when, you can't like actually fully explain a thought a lot of the time on Twitter. But yeah, I think it's basically the actual sentiment behind what he's saying. I understand. I think number one is the reason that people got so worked up is, number one, he really worded it quite poorly. Number two, I think that a lot of people are misunderstanding what he's saying. When he says, if you lose a game and you're not mad, you have a problem. I think he's obviously a lot more referring to, if you're like a pro gamer, or if you're a professional basketballer and you lose a game, or if, you're in a Fortnite tournament that you've trained for and you play bad and you lose, you should be unhappy. And I think that's like, a good sentiment. It's not a totally incorrect sentiment for life, which is you should, if it's something that you're trying to do professionally, where you want to be the best, you're doing it competitively, then if you underperform, you should be dissatisfied. You should be dissatisfied and be wanting to improve. The other part, though, where he tripped up is the word dissatisfied versus the word angry, which is, being angry and having, drive and personal growth are mutually exclusive. You can lose, be dissatisfied that you lost, be introspective and think, okay, that wasn't good. What could I do better? Let's do better next time. And not be angry.
And that's not a losing mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, there's two sides to it, because I agree. I think his choice in words wasn't the best, and there are other words that he could have used instead of angry, like dissatisfied, or, if you don't want to try again after you lose, then you've lost twice. Like, yeah. I think that would be better words to use. But I also think that the Twitter sphere can be a bit PC sometimes, to be honest. And I think one thing people also don't like hearing is that it's really hard to be the best at something. And to be the best at something often requires a personal investment that is going above and beyond. It's not easy. You can't get there by sailing through it. Yeah. And it kind of is something that we've touched on a previous episode of the podcast when we were talking about what it takes to actually be successful. And this is where I kind of agree with Ninja. And I think that his mentality is not wrong, that if you want to be the best at something, you just can't be satisfied with anything less than the best from yourself. And I mean, I'm kind of interested to hear what you think on this, because I feel like anger for you is something that you do deal with, and it's not necessarily in actually the outcome of the game that you get angry, but obviously you do YouTube. You want to be a really good YouTuber, and I know if you can't get a video right that you want to get right, you can get really angry. I don't know. I think that's interesting to think about because I've definitely heard you from outside your office.
I don't know what you're talking about. It never happened. That's never
You
happened ever.
you can completely rage. Like if you have an idea for a video and it doesn't go right, or you're feeling like you're not getting the outcome that you want, you can seriously rage. And
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the reason I get mad, I feel like is slightly different, but it is, all that, doing games as a job, getting angry, that whole topic. I think that, the difference with YouTube is it's not like, you're in like a 100-person server and, I came fourth and I didn't come first and 3 people placed ahead of me. But at the same time, obviously you do need to perform and, make and do well, which is obviously then measured through the performance of your videos. I think though for me, I don't really tend to get angry if I post a video and it doesn't do well. But I know the big trigger for me when I'm doing, when I'm making videos and recording is so much just wasted time. That's what really triggers me is that, when you're recording a video, you obviously there are some parts where you're getting really, really good stuff. So for example, if I'm doing, a death run, which is, the kind of thing where you have to continually run through these really, really hard obstacles. And normally you'll fail again and again and again and again and again. But I never get mad when I'm doing a death run, especially when I fail. The reason being is that for a death run, I mean, I'll get mad, but I won't get like actually mad.
Yeah, because it's content.
Because it's content. The failure is the content. Every time I mess up, I'm like, great. Like that is what the video is. Whereas I think for me, when I'm making content, what makes me mad, it's wasted time. It's when I'm doing, say, like a challenge video where I need to win a game doing some really oddly, weirdly specific thing, like only like not building or only using one weapon or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the first few times that you attempt it and you fail, you're like, okay, it's good because it's all content. You always want to have a few fails in there. But after you've been trying to do it for 3 or 4 hours and you sit down and you record, a full like 15 minutes, you're like, all right, we're coming back down. You're live commentating everything, you're talking, you're playing, things are going well. You're like, this is turning into some really good content. All I need now is to win. And then you lose and it just feels like everything you've just done is wasted. And then you compound that over, if I'm like trying to do a really hard challenge and it might take me 4 hours, if I fail nonstop for 4 hours, then I'm like, I literally can't use any of that footage because I've already hit my quota on the number of fails I can put in the video.
Yeah.
I could have just not done this for the last 4 hours. I've literally everything I've done is completely worthless.
But I think that is kind of what Ninja's saying. Like, obviously, his applies to winning or losing games because that's sort of the avenue that he's trying to be the best at. Whereas for you, it's making great videos or not making great videos.
Yeah.
And I think where I agree with Ninja is that if you want to be the best at anything, you kind of have to have a constant state of dissatisfaction. You constantly have to be in the mindset where you're like, I'm not doing as well as I should be right now. I could be doing more. And I think the public doesn't necessarily like to hear that sometimes. I think people like the idea that you can be the best and be the most productive and have the most incredible outcomes and not have any downside to it or not have to sacrifice things for it. And I just think ultimately it's not true. I think if you want to be the best at anything, you need to be doing more than what anyone else is doing and being prepared to work harder. And I think when you're putting that level of investment into what you're doing, the feelings of anger when you feel like you're not reaching your potential there are going to come out.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I mean, I really think that in that way, he's right. And I think sometimes people just don't like to hear that. But also his choice in words was not the best. It could have been better.
Yeah, I think it basically just comes down to, and obviously it happens because Twitter is a stream of consciousness. I don't think there was any ill will behind what he said. I don't actually think he meant what people are interpreting the tweet as. But